Changed. A collection of answers to 3 simple but powerful questions. 1. Describe yourself before the change. 2. Describe the moment of the change. 3. Describe yourself since the change.
I came from Flyover America, Central Illinois, a town of about 90,000 people, where the big thing to do in that town was to probably get out as soon as possible. I was raised in a good family. I had no needs or wants, except for my brothers and sisters. I wanted them out. But other than that, I had a normal life. And it, kind of, you wonder why people do the things that they do. I'd gone to church and most of my life raised Catholic. And when I got to be about, in 8th grade, I remember the priest coming by kind of recruiting for the seminary. And I remember taking literature home to my mother, and she was just like, oh, my boy wants to be a priest. But it didn't take long before that notion went out of me, because I discovered girls, and then it was cigarettes, and then it was beer, and you know the story. But I just, when I turned 18, I just shrugged off church and anything like that, and just proceeded to do those things that people tend to do, which is kind of the beginning of destroying your life, just doing stupid stuff one after another, and it was got into drugs. And I'm no story of a big drug addict or anything like that. It's just simple recreational stuff that takes a toll on you. I wasn't a violent person. I wasn't in any kind of gangs or anything like that, but still, it doesn't matter. You can be just a normal, everyday person and get involved in totally the wrong things and start the big slide down. But, all my friends did it, and it's what I did too. It was the thing that everybody seemed to be doing. And so my big problem was acid was a popular thing that we used to take. And I just remember one time, it was after I had joined the military, and I had gotten out, discharged honorably, but still on a scam thing, which I'm not proud of. I left the military, and the day I was going to do that, we were going to celebrate. And this guy and I split some acid, LSD, and we went up skiing, and I totally lost my mind. I went insane, and the guy that I was with, he just wanted to drop me off and get rid of me because I was a basket case, and the military had to take me by the hand through the discharge process and get me on a plane that the flight attendants were really concerned for me. And I went home, and my mother knew I was nuts all of a sudden, but didn't know why, and she stuck me in the basement to where I don't even remember how long I was down there. It was just, I was nuts. Prior to that, my friends, we used to go out and we'd drink some beers around a little bonfire we'd make, and if we had a friend or something that went and got a job or got a girlfriend and didn't run with us anymore, we would take our beers and we would pour them on the flames, and we'd go ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That's one bro that's no longer with us, and it was sort of our memorial to our drinking buddy. Well, I'm at home and I'm insane, living in my parents' basement, and they came by to see me. They heard I was back from the military and stuff, and they came in and they couldn't even talk to me. I couldn't even function. I couldn't relate and everything like that. And when they told me, he says, we said our little memorial thing about you at the fire, I felt like I died. I mean, my mind was so insane, and that just put the last nail in my coffin. I was in such a desperate shape. I found out later my mother was about ready to commit me. It was real close. And I just remember just the whole time being in mental torment, and I didn't know what to do about it. And I remember my dad always he was an auxiliary sheriff, and he kept his service revolver by his bed. And it occurred to me, Eureka, I know how to stop all this. All I have to do is go up and get my dad's gun and blow my brains out. And I thought, what? This is too easy. And I got up to go do that, when suddenly the realization of what I was about to do just struck me. And for what reason? I just called out on the name of Jesus, and I just said, Jesus, make it stop. And it did. I had an instant miracle from Jesus Christ right then and there, and I didn't even know who he was other than what I learned at church, that he hung on a cross, and that was about it. I came out of that a different person. I was scared of everybody and everything. I couldn't relate to anybody. I wanted to be a hermit, wanted to hide, wanted to, just roll up in a ball and, hope everything would just go by me. But, I got back with my friends little by little, and next thing you know, they're offering me the same thing that put me in that condition. And I just remember I cut it all off at that point, and it was over. Anyway, as time went on, I got a job. I was holding that. I met my sweetheart that I'm married to now, and after time, we got married, and we tried all kinds of things, hiking from Mexico to Canada, which we didn't make it, and we tried gold mining, which turned to an obsession with me, but it was an adventure, and we just loved, the kind of life we were doing. We ended up finally in Prescott, Arizona. It was actually gold that kind of took me to that town, and we moved into this community, and we got jobs, and the gold fever kind of left me, and we felt real established, and it was like, this is great. We're living in a mountain town. Something we always like to do is be around the mountains. And we used to ask ourselves every once in a while, because we'd been married for quite some time. It was, I think, about 14 years. And all during that time, every once in a while, we'd ask, it's like, when do you want to start a family? And it was like, we would kind of throw the question around a little bit, and then we'd realize, it's like, why would we want to start a family, and have kids and not be able to tell them what's right and wrong? I mean, we didn't know what was right, what was wrong. And we used to watch some neighbor teenagers who used to act pretty rebellious, and it was like, I don't want to raise anything. It turns into that, and we'd just drop it. And so as time went on, for some reason, I just had an itch about God. And one Christmas, I bought a Bible, put it in the box, put it under the tree. Jeannie, my wife, she shook it several times, trying to figure out what this one was all about. And then when it came time, she opened it, looked at the Bible, and just like, oh, okay, and set it aside. And it just didn't have any kind of impact like I was hoping. I was just hungry for God for some reason. And so I started skimming through the Bible, just wondering, okay, what is in this book? I was raised all my life, in church, but I didn't know what was in this book or anything. And I just, did some, what they call a drop and flop, just to open it up and see where you're at in the Bible. And I'm just finding all this stuff about animal sacrifice and blood sacrifice, and I'm like, do I need to go up in the mountains and sacrifice sheep and goats? I'm like, this doesn't make a bit of sense. And so I let it go. We'd gone back to Catholic Church for about a month and realized it was very unfulfilling. It didn't do anything in our life, and so end of story. Until there was just an advertisement on the radio about a movie about the end times that somebody was putting on at a local theater. And I had seen the movie before, and I asked Jeannie if she'd like to go see it. And so we did, and we go into this theater, and before the movie starts, we're sitting close to the door, just being cautious. But what was odd was everybody in this place was like happy, and we looked at each other as something is really strange here. They're on some happy juice or something, and I don't get it, So we watched the movie, and at the end, somebody just gave an appeal about how much God loves us and that we needed to be born again. And all of a sudden, for some reason, it's like, well, I knew all that stuff, but I never knew it. But it struck my heart. It's like that God would love us so much that he'd die on the cross for us. And I remember they asked if anybody wanted that, Jesus to come into their life and to be born again, to raise their hand. And I felt so moved by God to do that. And so I just kind of opened up one eye as I raised my hand to accept that. And I looked over at Janie, and she was raising her hand too. And so from that day on, suddenly life was different. It was just unreal. I mean, to know that the God of the universe loved us so much. He did everything for us originally, but how we can mess up our lives, and ignore God, which I think primarily maybe the world really does, but there's promises that he said that he has for us. And we've taken him up on some of those promises to where our lives has been totally changed. From that point, it has just been wonderful to where we finally realized, I think I could start a family now. I think I know what I'm supposed to tell my children, what's right and what's wrong. Because I've got an example of my own life I can explain to them and explain about Jesus and how much he loves us. And so we started a family, raised them in church, and, my daughter, she's serving God. My son, he's just not there, but it's our own decision individually, what we do about this. But just this morning, I am up before the alarm, and it's dark, and I just go in the living room, and I sit down in the dark living room, and the fireplace kicks on, and I'm just thinking, man, I am just snug in this house. I feel like I'm snug in the love of God. And so I'm going over with God the things he's done in my life, and I mean that's a bottomless list. And I'm just appreciating God just for everything he's done in my life. And then it kind of occurred to me, it's not fair. Life is not fair. I took that life that God gave me and I turned it into an awful thing, It was of my own design and kicked God totally out of the relationship. And then he climbs onto a cross to pay the price for my sin so that I can have a way to be with him in heaven. It's not fair on account of, what he did. I mean, the exchange, it's just not fair. My crummy life for his. And I got to say, that was a very amazing thing that God did. And it's not what I deserve, but that's the grace of God. My name's Joel Morrison, and on May 18th, 1985, I was changed.